Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wild Woman Podcast. My guest today is from, or is living in Galway in the west coast of Ireland, where I live as well. And we actually met at a drumming circle. I'm just remembering this beautiful drumming circle run by Eamon Carrick in Galway. It's phenomenal. It's just been life-changing. I've spoken about it a number of times, and I think it was around that time and through a number of other synchronicities that led me to start the podcast. So you say you never know where anything is leading in your life. You really don't. I think it's just a reminder to follow your heart, follow your passion, follow what lights you up. You will not go wrong, even if you've no idea where it's leading you. So it's led me to today to be doing a podcast and interviewing Niamh, who I wouldn't have met otherwise. So I'm really grateful for that. Niamh is a homeopath, but she's all as well. She has also studied naturopathy and also did a lot of work on different detox systems, which we can talk about as we go into the. But she studied many different modalities, and that really interests me. I suppose I have a passion for natural health. We all choose maybe different paths based on our experiences in terms of how we look after ourselves, but it's been a big shift in my life. So I think it's really lovely to just introduce different ways we can look after ourselves and that empower ourselves. I think that's the key in all of this, that we are empowered in making the choices that are right for us. So welcome, Niamh. Really delighted to have you here today.
Great. Delighted to be here, Celine. Very excited to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. We've been planning it for quite a while and it's finally arrived. It's always the right time. I always feel the right day. Can you start? We'll go into homeopathy. It's one area. It's funny. It's always interested me, but I've never still completely understood it, even though I know it's very powerful. And I've always sort of been drawn to other things, but I've never really, I don't know why. And maybe it is that something just hasn't clicked in me. So I'd love to talk about that. But can we start with just, I know you said as well that you've worked in sort of health food shops for almost 30 years, which that is yeah, a long time. So is that when your love of natural health started, or was that always there from a younger age when you were a child?
Well, my mum was very much the mom who made the brown bread, and we weren't allowed sugar in the house. So
Wow. Oh my God, that's a different childhood.
mum was very. I remember her eating avocados as a child, and nobody ate avocados in Ireland in the 1980s, like nobody. So I remember her sitting there with her avocado, and she was very much always looking at health and wellness. So she was, and it was interesting because we had a few family friends who were actually homeopaths. Um, but it was only, but I'd never been to a homeopath myself. It was quite funny. So it's funny that I ended up on this path because it wasn't the plan. Homeopathy was not the plan at all. Um,
Ah, that's interesting. It wasn't the plan at all. Well, obviously not as a young child.
no, and when as I went along, I was working in health food shops when I was about 19, and had a lot of anxiety and gut issues were my two issues at the time. And I remember someone saying to me in the health food shop, lovely girl Colette, who I think still works in Evergreen on Main Guard Street, and she suggested I take a B complex at the time. And I remember taking a B complex and going, "Oh, I actually feel a little bit better. I feel less anxious than myself." And then someone suggested maybe cutting wheat out of my diet. And I cut wheat out of my diet, my digestive system. So I was like, I was hooked then. I was like, oh my God, there's actually, and I'd been through different investigations. I'd had all the investigations of my digestive system. I'd been on medication for anxiety at one point. And then I could see that I could help myself. And I just was just amazed by this. It was really exciting for me to go, I can do something about this, you know?
Mm. But isn't it amazing to have such a good, I think that's key. Sorry, I've looked like I've my hand up to ask you a question like I'm in school. Um, but isn't it amazing when you have and to be that young to have such a profound result from something? I think that's what fuels us, when you have that impact in your life. Was that so you said okay, you had a lot of anxiety, gut issues. How would you trace them back? So say like looking at yourself growing up as a child, how would you have described yourself as a child? What was life like?
Really anxious child, really anxious child. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I think I had three brothers, and my dad had his own business, and I think there was And my parents were quite religious, so there was a lot of kind of me trying to be the good girl, make sure everyone was okay. It's very typical, girl story, that we were trying to keep everybody happy. Um, so that's kind of where that started. And I was very anxious. I hated school. I was very restless in school. I had the typical Irish experience of primary school, which was not very pleasant. So that anxiety kind of built and built as I got older and older. Um, but my dad, because he had his own business, I started working in his shop at quite a young age, and that's how I ended up working in the health food shop. And there's nothing like, if you've got an anxious or a shy child, put them working in retail. And you have to start speaking. You have to start speaking to people, and it's very powerful. So I'm grateful to my parents for getting me helping out in my dad's craft shop.
Yeah.
And,
What sort of shop was it, Niamh?
dad's a wood turner, Niamh O'Neill. Yeah, he's quite well known wood turner. Amazing craftsman. He does these amazing sculptures. So I'm very proud of Dad, and Mum she is the power behind him. I'm very proud of my parents. They've given me a
Oh,
lot.
that's beautiful to hear. That's really amazing to hear. Where are you from, Galway?
No, I grew up in Shannon, so I grew up in a housing estate, council housing estate. But my grandparents would be from here. So at one point, I think it was 2004. No, 94. I'm taking 10 years off my age. My father was offered one of the units in the craft centre here in Spiddle, and so we moved up to Spiddle when I was 14. So yeah, and just I feel like I'm home. I think it's because my ancestors are from here. I feel like so solid here. I never felt at home in Shannon. Um, just where I am, I look at the back walls of my garden. We never took down the original stone walls, and that's what my grandfather or possibly great grandfather built, and that's just so.
Oh my God, that's very moving. I actually got such chills when you're saying that. It really feels like now that I've had that call with my great grandfather there down Tipperary, not with him particularly, but with the land and visiting and just this feel I get down there. Do you think has that played a big role in your life, like this sort of sense of place? And I think
Yeah.
in Ireland's a very sacred land. I think that we're rediscovering or sort of remembering that and how powerful it is, that it's such a powerful force in our lives. It can be.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I said, I feel so rooted here, and I have my little tiny
Mm.
holding here. I've got my ducks and chickens and the polytunnel, and yeah, yeah, I love living here and being here, and it does feel like I'm in the where I'm supposed to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a coming home. But it's interesting because I've spoken to a few people over the summer who have moved back to where they came from. Actually, speaking of Shannon, I met a lovely girl at the drumming circle who, again, was from Shannon, and she had moved back. And I was talking to some other people over the summer. It's like, there's certain times in your life you kind of revisit parts of your life. So I seem to be revisiting Shannon this year for some weird reason.
Mm.
I went camping with some lovely people from Shannon, and they had moved back as well. Yeah, it's like I feel like sometimes we get called back to where we
Yeah.
started with salmon. We go back to where, or, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's some say unfinished business or things. Yeah, can I just, if you don't mind, because I don't know, I just find it very interesting because I think these sort of, I wouldn't say patterns, but these things that sort of start for whatever reason and they can sort of flow through our lives, like say the anxiety in the childhood. Is there anything you put that down to? Just, I know you're very sensitive. We talked about this before we started recording, and I would identify it with that as well. I can just remember feeling, even if nobody knew, my memory of primary school as being just completely anxious and afraid. And how would you yeah, how would you relate to that now if you're thinking back to that time you were in Shannon and growing up? What
I suppose
for you?
in some ways I'm grateful for it because I work a lot now. My practice is a lot of I work with a lot of people with anxiety, which is quite interesting. It's like, and that's been true. Like some homeopaths do coughs and colds and flus, but in general, people often will come with a physical ailment. But I know it is as well because a lot more people are experiencing anxiety. But it's one of the things I really love working with because I know what it feels like.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's able to help someone to, you know, ease into it and, find a good homeopathic remedy to help them manage it, because as you know, anxiety is important. We need it. It's like if we didn't have anxiety, we wouldn't thrive in life. We wouldn't know what was safe and unsafe. We wouldn't, but it's when it consumes us and it stops us from doing things. That's when you know,
Mm. And would you see like if I think back just myself, even to being a very young child, I part of it I put down to not, it's not blaming anyone, it's just the system and the world that we grew up in. If you're very sensitive, and I think it's just even to let people, hopefully things are changing, and I think our school system maybe wasn't so supportive of that. But if you didn't, and many of the guests I've interviewed, I find maybe felt they didn't fit in a lot of cases when they were younger, because if you're going to end up, you met someone who was a homeopath through your mother, so it gave you a certain amount maybe of permission when the time came, if you know what I mean, that it was in your world a bit. But if it wasn't, and I felt very sensitive, there was no place for, I didn't even know, you know what I mean, what you could do with this or how you navigated it. Like, do you see that through clients playing, that there's sort of been a pattern in their life maybe that has led them to where they are now if they're really suffering with it? Or
yeah,
do
I
you?
think that feeling of unsafety, I think a lot of people have when they're being themselves. Like I often think of anecdote when I was a child. I always had a really strong sense of injustice. I couldn't stand suffering or injustice. So I remember as a child, I was always very mouthy and kind of, if something was happening in the class, I would call it out, and go, hey, but you would make a mistake there, or you shouldn't have said that to him, or, to the teacher, which this is how I became a quiet child because it was a constant, you know, um, silencing, like, be quiet. And often I see through people coming to me, it's like there's been that pattern through life where they were kind of either trying to manage everybody else's feelings and make sure everybody else was okay, or they felt silence, they felt they couldn't speak out, and that yeah, so it often comes from an early age, but as you said, it's society, growing up in the 80s in Ireland, like you weren't supposed to speak out. It was like that was a time where things were just starting to change in this country, where
Mm,
behave, and we were,
yeah.
because my parents weren't Catholic, so that made us a little bit different. So we're always a little bit other, we did have,
Sorry, what did you say? You were, is a born again Christian, is it?
so my parents are Baptist now.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were different. And I remember a neighbor's daughter, the neighbor said her daughter wasn't allowed to play with me because I wasn't Catholic, and that kind of stayed with me. Yeah, yeah, and it's
So there's a lot of those, yeah, you're feeling a bit other, it sounds like, if you're feeling, you
and
know,
very sensitive as well. I remember at night time being really scared at night, because I could just, yeah, just always very sensitive to energy around me and things like that. Or if there was stress in the house, or there was a neighbor upset, or whatever it was, there was always a very kind of, I would soak everything up, I think, as a child.
mm, mm. And I think maybe we might touch on that again in a little bit, just because I just want to talk about how you got into what the work that you do now. But it seems to me very relevant right now in the world that those who are very, it's like I feel like it's the time of the sensitive now almost, the coming of age of the sensitive, that everything we have been through, many, for anyone who has felt that we are, I think, naturally meant to be sensitive, but some more than others. It's like those skills that some of the life lessons we've had to go through and initiations are now, and hard things we've had to learn. We touched on boundaries as well, being another one, because yeah, how do you feel about all of that? Like, has that, looking back now where you are practicing as a homeopath and a naturopath,
It
you
took me
know,
time to get my boundaries up because I remember when I was practicing first, I could see maybe two clients a week because it would just absolutely wipe me. And I would sit with someone, I was completely ridiculous. I would sit with someone for 3 hours, which is unnecessary. But I just was just so, I wanted to know everything, I wanted to understand a person. And I thought at the time I needed 3 hours to do this, you know. But it's like, what I've learned over time is there's a lot of amazing homeopathic remedies for boundaries, and I use them a lot for people, depending on what their sensitivity is. And I remember the first time being given a remedy myself called Thuya. and it's the tree of life, and it's a great remedy when we're out of our bodies. And I remember taking the remedy and just going whoop and going, whoa, oh my God, I had no idea I was out of my body until I went back in, and it was just mind blowing,
Wow.
mind blowing. And so when I think of it now, it was like, wow, it was like I could feel myself, and I could never feel myself before because I was so anxious and up in my head and not having good boundaries and just soaking everyone else's energy. It's like, oh, this is what I feel like. This is me. Okay. And it was just
Wow.
incredible.
When was that, Niamh?
Oh God, that's a good long time ago. It's about 20 years ago.
But
Yeah.
that sounds incredible. Like I still feel I'm coming back into my body. I mean, there are parts coming back, but I think so many, when you describe that, has life, how would you describe life has changed since you came back into your body? It has its good ups and downs.
Unfortunately, I keep nipping out again, like as we
That's
do.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Constant kind of working with that. But now it's like I know my boundaries are much better because I can see, you know, like 20 clients in a week. I can do that. That's not ideal. That's not how I want to do my week. Maybe 12, 15 people is perfect. But I can do that now because I can hold a space for people's energy and kind of keep my own energy, you know, keep my energy where it is and keep someone's energy where it is and kind of meet them in the middle and kind of so I can kind of try and
Mm,
not quite experience, but kind of understand what they're feeling, what their energy is, so I can find a good fit for a remedy for them. But there's lots of amazing homeopathic remedies for helping people with that. I use phosphorus a lot, which is very much, it's again to help someone just people who get very pulled into other people's energy, like either if someone else gets excited, they get excited. If someone else is sad, they get sad. And it's like, and phosphorus is a gorgeous remedy for just helping to keep that boundary, because that can be a great thing when things are good, but it can be really difficult way to be. It's very exhausting if you're around a lot of negative energy. And I see a lot in kids, they need a lot of kids need phosphorus to just hold so they're not getting sucked into everyone else's energy field. It's a yeah.
yeah. When you think of it as a young child and thinking back to you and me and others and now, it must be so, and there's so many other distractions now and so much, stimulation, and it must be very hard for very sensitive children. In schools particularly, which are very sort of sitting all day in most schools anyways, they don't get a lot of time to move around and shake things off. Well, I don't know, but that's my feeling.
Changing, like, I mean, laughing, I've heard lately a few schools that have trampolines in the corridor so kids can
Wow.
find their way. I love this. It's like, so
Oh, that's
schools,
brilliant.
I'm so happy. I mean, that would have been so helpful. It's like, we were talking about ducks before. Okay, it's almost like a duck shaking off, shake off off the feelings and get on with things. You have a little bounce.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and a dog even. I was doing this breathwork practice, and he kept reminding. He was just saying about, as humans we don't do that, but if you see two dogs have a fight, they shake it off, and then they're gone on to the next thing. They're not in their heads replaying the fight. I don't think so. As, so just takes back a little bit then. So you ended up working in health food shops for 30 years, and you started to.
I wasn't
Sorry.
working there for 30 years. It was 30 years ago. I
Oh,
was
sorry, 30 years ago. Apologies, apologies. I'm making you older than you were. But it was 30 years ago, and you started to, get some results through using, you said, the vitamin B and for gut. What happened then? What led you then down the path of training in this area?
What happened was a lady came into the shop one day and they were opening up a new college in Galway, a naturopathy college. So I was like, sign me up. And it was funny because I went home and told my parents that I'd applied for this naturopathy college. And they told, oh, your great great grandmother was actually a herbalist. And I had no idea. It was crazy. That's a whole podcast. She's a very interesting story. Um,
Well, tell us a
but
little bit, tiny bit.
name was
Just,
Anne, and she was their family. They were a tenant farmer, but they were the rich tenant farmers. They were Church of Ireland, so they were rich tenant farmers, and her father actually ended up drinking the farm essentially. So she ended up, their father died, she ended up impoverished, living in a hovel with her mother and her brothers, one of them who's disabled, and her husband, who was a landless labourer. So she really stepped on. He was Catholic, which was, big, church of our Protestant
Mm.
Catholic, that, back in
No.
the big no, no. My family's very eclectic.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. Is this your mother's side of the family, is it? The mother's, yeah.
This side is a whole other amazing story. um, but she had cures from her mother, I think it was originally. So she had a cure for skin cancer. So people would come from everywhere, and she had a balm that she would use. And the only thing I know, because my grandmother was offered the cure and she didn't want it because she had had a very difficult life. She's like, I don't want people calling to the door looking for cures. I just don't have the energy for it, and that was fair enough. So the line was kind of broken. All I know is there was plantain in the cream. That's all I know. That's the only herb I have.
You're going to
But
discover it.
yeah, people keep saying, I'm sure you, but I'm not a herbalist, so that's okay. Which the
Yeah.
plan after that, when I heard that, when I was studying naturopathy, was to become a herbalist. This was the plan. I was going to now become a herbalist, and I loved plants and anyway, and I loved being out in nature. And Dad was great. Dad's always been great with herbs, and he would walk me around, fields and go, okay, this is this, and this is very good for this, and this is that. He dad had some of the wisdom, from his great grand his no his grandmother, his great grandmother. Look, it
Mm.
gets. Um, but as I was studying college, so I got through naturopathy, and um,
Describe naturopathy for anyone. Yeah, I'm not calling it the right name. How would you describe it for someone who hasn't heard?
want to describe it to me as it's a little bit of everything. So it's almost like your natural GP. It's almost like, so you have kind of a little bit of skills and everything, and then you send people off to a consultant, if you kind of get me. So most naturopaths specialize in something else. So it could be acupuncture, it could be herbs, it could be homeopathy, and then kind of through consultation decide. So naturopathy is kind of using a little bit of herbs. I use a lot of dietary stuff with people. Um, you might use intermittent fasting, you might use cold water therapy, it just depends on, so it's kind of a little mix of all those kind of health things, that a
So
little bit
sort of
of.
natural health solutions, sort of a mix of different. Does naturopathy go into then, obviously, in doing that in a consultation, the emotional state or the sort of deeper getting into root cause type of issues, or?
And where I use mostly the homeopathy now, because I worked for years in naturopathic clinics, and where we were using detox systems and stuff like that, and I could see a lot of great physical changes happening with people, but oftentimes as they were detoxing, um, emotions would come up, and there was nowhere for them to go. So
Mm.
it was like, so they'd be doing great physically, but then obviously when we store all these emotions in our bodies, um, when you start to detox, they can sometimes come up. And then what do you do then? And that's very distressing sometimes. So I remember one of the detox systems that I was studying was using homeopathic remedies for detoxing. And as I was studying the system, someone suggested that maybe I study classical homeopathy to kind of to deal with that, when these emotions come up for people. And basically, I started studying homeopathy and fell completely in love. And it was like I was hooked, because with homeopathy, you're looking at the physical, you're looking at the emotional, you're looking at the mental, sometimes the psychic. It's like it's every level, because it's an energy medicine. So I just was,
Mm.
has everything here. And as well, often with the naturopathy, you put someone on say a herb to take for weeks at a time, and they forget, as we do, or I put them on a dietary change, and again they'll go great for a while, and then you just kind of um, fall off the bandwagon. Or your
Mm.
sizes. We all do that. Where with homeopathy, the remedies will help change things on a energetic level. You
Mm.
don't have to
Yes.
make a big effort. It's not based on your effort. It's based on
Yes.
when the system is ready to heal, and it'll heal whether if you're ready. You don't have to do anything for it to work. You don't even have to believe
Yeah.
it.
You don't what?
You don't even have to believe in it. It's like it's working.
But if you're coming to a homeopath, you likely, well, you have a bit of curiosity if you don't have a belief.
Nobody doesn't. I love it. It's like,
Really? And how, so, okay, just maybe just for a moment and explain when you say, I love the idea that it's an energy medicine. I sort of feel that's the future. I think once your energy is sort of aligned and, coherent, let's say mind, body, spirit, that is true health, Well, that's been my experience when everything is sort of lining up and life will happen. But when I can come back in, it's sort of the body just regulates and it's given the environment to heal. So, as a homeopath, how would you describe then I've often heard, is it you're working with whatever the issue is becomes the solution, is it? Or how?
that actually.
What?
I like that. I haven't heard it put like that before.
Yeah, but I don't
Often
know, still understand it really.
perfectly put, actually. Oftentimes, what we say in homeopathy, and this is a really simplistic way of putting it, because it's can be more complex than this, but it's the whole basis of homeopathy is like cures like. So the example we often give, and this is the classical example that we give is so you're looking for something that will, so if you've got say a stomach bug, we would look to find a remedy that would give you a stomach bug, that would give you the symptoms of a stomach bug. So a really simple example would be if you're cutting an onion, your eyes start stinging, your eyes start running, your nose gets a bit sore. So if someone's got that kind of cold where their eyes are, running and stinging and their nose is sore, we'll give them homeopathic onion. So it's like we're using a substance that can cause certain symptoms to cure those same symptoms.
Mm. And how does that work?
So,
Sorry, I get like, I'll be like, why? I'll become like a child, but why? Why?
I love that because I need kind of some base. I need kind of
Beginners curiosity for.
and I'm the same. I need the reason I went for homeopathy is because there's 200 years of
Mm.
research and yeah, in behind
Yeah.
it.
I'm not
Love.
doubting, but but I just find it very hard if someone said to me, what is it? I still, okay, so I leave you explain.
So how it works is, so obviously if you just cut up an onion and took an onion, it can, because that's probably a bad example because onions are fantastic for colds. But generally, if you just take something, it's not going to cure it as such. So what we do is we dilute something down. So we would take one part of a substance and put it with 99 parts of water. So it's very much diluted down. And this is really important, especially if a substance is a poison. One of the really useful remedies that we have is arsenic.
Mm.
The stomach bug there. So oftentimes for if someone's got food poisoning, we'll often use arsenicum, which is homeopathic arsenic. And obviously you can't go around giving people arsenic, even if
Well, depends who they are, I know. But
so
mm.
Simon, I better name Simon Hahnemann, who put together homeopathy. Um, he discovered obviously that if you dilute things down, they're less harmful, obviously, but then they don't work because there's nothing left there. So he discovered that if you do something called succussion, which is banging something vigorously against something else, it's like it's releases the energy of the substance into the water. Um, I don't know if you heard the I was trying to remember his name the last day. He won a Nobel Prize for discovering the AIDS virus, but he did a lot of research on the memory of water. Um, and he was talking about a lot about the water, the substances going into water and the energy of substances going into water. So Simon Hahnemann 200 years ago was already doing this. So when you do that potentization, it releases the energy of the substance into the water. And makes it more powerful. So you've got the energy of the substance and not the actual material substance.
Yes, that's very interesting. Okay. And is it always plant? Like, is it always plant-based? No.
So arsenic is a poison, or
Oh,
so
yes, yeah.
it can be plants. I use a lot of hormones, homeopathically prepared hormones when I'm working with people. We have amazing remedy called Laxus, which is a snake venom. It can be literally anything. There is some wild stuff made. We've even got Nuala Ising in County Clare. She's an amazing homeopath, and she proved the mobile phone. Just incredible.
She
So
what?
there's
What did she do?
mobile phone. So when you prove a remedy, it's how you make a remedy. So you make
Okay.
a homeopathic remedy. We called it proving, um, because you prove what it does by people take the remedy, and over time they get the symptoms of that remedy, and then we know what it'll cure. So mobile phone was one of the ones that was done, which is incredible. So you can literally make a remedy out of anything. Yeah, but generally
Oh,
it is plants and minerals. It would be the main things that we'd use, but you can literally um, kind of imprint the energy from anything into water and make it into a homeopathic remedy. Yeah, it's a
so the energy of that would cause the problem, you're putting that into water, you're making a remedy, it causes the symptoms that, oh, is it the body becomes immune system starts to work then in response to that? Or
yeah. So so when your body is creating symptoms, it's always trying to express itself, as you know. It's like when your body is not well, it'll express it in some way. So if you the body has been wise, it's doing that, even though sometimes it's really uncomfortable.
challenging. Yeah. We'll take the anxiety maybe, and I know it'll be different for everyone, just maybe as an example of someone. So say someone has extreme anxiety and they come to you.
So they're trying to keep themselves safe, and that's why they're anxious. So it's there
Yes.
for.
Yeah.
So I'll be looking for a remedy that, if a healthy person took it over time, would have the same type of anxiety. So it's almost like if I give them more of what their body is creating, it's like the body goes, "Oh yeah, okay, this is okay. I actually don't need to express it like this anymore," and it kind of recalibrates itself. It's like it's kind of integrates it. It's
Yeah.
more of what it's already creating, and it's like it goes, "Okay, I'm done now. I've expressed this, and now I can let it go." It's
Okay, so it's almost bringing it to the maximum of, okay, there's so much here being expressed that it sort of clears out. I may not be, yeah, articulating it very well. I'm sort of getting it, and maybe a lot of people listening will understand. No, I just think it's so fascinating. It's one that I haven't, but I think it's just showing the power of energy. I just have a firm belief and sort of a knowing in me that our bodies can heal from anything, that the intelligence of our bodies is just beyond anything we can comprehend. So it's just when you're describing, yeah, giving your body something that if that person was healthy, they'd have the symptoms. You're giving it to someone who has the symptoms, and so they're getting more and more by giving them so much. It's like the body comes to know it doesn't need to express that symptom. I'm just
yeah,
wondering if the root cause of that anxiety, sorry, I don't want to labor this point, but say if the root cause and someone had extreme situations, maybe very unsafe situations growing up. So understandably, they've all this anxiety is, and you're coming in and you're giving them a remedy. And I know it's working on many levels that is almost amplifying the anxiety in one way.
it's not like it's not going to
Not-
amplify the anxiety. So I don't want people to think that it's going to make them
Yes,
anxiety.
okay, yeah. So I just want to be clear.
Yeah. So it's like you're meeting it with the same energy. So the body goes, "Okay, I don't need to express it like this anymore," and it just kind of the whole nervous system kind of just calms down. And I do like there's literally, oh my God, there's like thousands of homeopathic remedies, and there's hundreds for anxiety. So like you were talking about root cause, when I'm sitting with someone, the more they can tell me about their story and what they've experienced, excuse me, so if there's been trauma or loss, or and how they feel that in their body, how they've expressed that in their lives, I'm trying to find a remedy that's similar to that. Like through year, for example, that remedy I mentioned earlier on, that's often if somebody's been, had their boundaries um, broken, it can help someone with that, and they've had to leave their body because of it. Um, it helps you get back in the body. We have a gorgeous remedy called Niamh, which is sea salt, and it's a really good one for grief. So if someone's anxiety is comes from grief, that's a remedy I'd use quite a bit. And as they take that, it's like they process the grief that little bit easier and can let it go. You talked before about expressing things, that
Yes.
you really feel things. I think we were talking before, and it'll just help you kind of just feel it and let it go. Um,
Yeah. That's
uh,
lovely. It just sounds like a real, yeah, I'm just trying to imagine, that because a lot of these things we block as well, like anxiety, again, everything's being repressed. So it's helping that sort of be expressed, that the body realizes is it that it's safe to express it now, that
yeah, and
in a healthy way, is it?
yeah, and if I do my job right, I give the right
Yeah.
feedback, it doesn't have to be very uncomfortable. Now you can use quite high potencies, we call it, of homeopathic remedies, and you can literally like just throw everything out in one go. I don't like to work with that. Some people, that's the way they like to work, and then you've cleared and it's all very quick. I like to go quite gently with people and go in slowly and just allow them to process and process and process. And it doesn't always have to be uncomfortable. I had a lady last year, and it was one of my favorite cases, because oftentimes with things like anxiety, when things are deep rooted, you're working a long time with somebody. And I literally gave her one remedy, and the next day she was like, "Oh, I don't need my next appointment. I'm actually fine." And she was fine, and she's been fine ever since. And it's just amazing. Like, and there was no big blowout, there was no tears, there was no, she just kind of, it's like everything just in her subconscious just kind of settled, and she kind of processed it. And then she doesn't have to be as anxious as she was before. She doesn't have to express them that way. She doesn't have to be afraid going through life, because she feels safe now. It's
That's
yeah.
incredible. So that was, you could be working with the client over a long period. Is that what you're saying? Depending, yeah. Well,
Very rare. I always remember those cases. I often say that's when the person was, they were almost there themselves. They were really ready to let that go.
Mm, mm.
But
But
oftentimes,
you,
it's a process over time where, when we're working with something,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
it sounds so powerful. I'm just thinking of the world now we're living in, and you're seeing a lot of people coming with anxiety, and so much is shifting and changing, and the world looks crazy, and everybody's in a different place depending on, what else, whatever you have going on in your life, anyways, personally, and then you have everything else.
Mhm.
So it just feels that it's a real, and a lot of the older, I'm not, everybody to their own and what you choose, but personally, my experience is if you keep taking just pills for something to suppress symptoms, yes, maybe they have their place in very extreme situations, but if you become reliant on it, you're never getting to me, that place of power in yourself, because we were talking a little bit about this before we came on air, coming into your authentic voice and your truth and who you truly are. And, I don't think you can do that if you're constantly suppressing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I work like I should say, like, some people are on medication when they come see me,
Mm.
or anxiety, and that's perfectly
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Sometimes when it gets too much, you need a breather, and to a level where they feel they can, then with their doctor, they can go. And then it's like, but like that, as you said, if you're constantly suppressing something, if you're never feeling sad,
You
no,
never feel happy. That was my experience. I
that
never
is
knew what true joy felt like. I just think if you're listening as well, and it can be so challenging, like when you're outside of something and you're out the other end of it, and we go through it, don't we, in layers and cycles throughout our life. Like it's not like, oh, I'm done. This is being human. But when you're out the other side, it's good, I believe, to be able to share, because that gives hope to someone who's maybe in it. And yes, they have to feel what they're in, but to know there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you can come through this, and there is a solution. There's always a solution. But but we still have to honor where we are. And how do you find that as well with clients? There is that sort of, because you talked about boundaries. So in terms of consultations, do things start to come up emotionally when you're working with people?
for myself.
In a session, yeah, when you're with that, like, I'm not saying you find yourself in the role of counselor sometimes, or does that, is that
So
part of the training, or
yeah, it's holding a space, and this is why
holding a space is better? Yeah.
favorite part of my work is holding space. I love people. I've always loved people, and I think that's why um, I worked in retail, and I worked in receptionist, as a receptionist in different clinics for so long, because I love people. I find them endlessly fascinating, and everyone has a story, and everyone feels differently. So I love sitting in a room with somebody and just holding a space for them, just to talk. Um, and the way for me to keep myself, the way I can do it now, whereas I was saying before I could only see one or two clients a week because I was just exhausted. Now I kind of, when I'm going into the space, I just call in some help. I kind of say, I kind of put it out there to know that whatever I need to hear in that moment, or whatever someone needs to express, they will, and whatever I need to know to find the right remedy for them in that moment, will come into the room. And that's how I work. And then I kind of, but I'm very comfortable holding a space. I mean, I used to joke saying, if someone isn't crying, I'm not doing my job right, because they're not, Often as Irish people, we apologize for our tears, and people are going, sorry, sorry. No, 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 this is great. There was a joke with some clients because they would say, every time I come here, I cry, and I go, well, that's the crying chair. Everybody's crying for my consultations. A safe space for someone to express themselves. And we were often told, in college, and I was talking to a friend this morning who has used homeopathy for years, and really, she was saying how much it saved her life. And we were talking about that consultation, how sitting in a room and just somebody holding a space for you where you can just be authentically yourself. There's no judgment. It's not going to leave the room. And just to be able to express yourself and be heard, just someone actively listen to. I'm different from a counselor because I don't advise. I'm just listening, and I'm trying to understand somebody's story because I need to understand them as much as possible to find the right remedy for them. But it's yeah, I think I'd say 80% of the healing happens in the room, just with someone feeling heard. I think
I
we all
think
want.
that's, yeah. And have you found that in your own life? Have you found spaces where you can be heard or could be heard as you went through your own
Yeah,
issues in life?
yeah. I mean, but see, I've been going to a homeopath myself for 20 years, and I'm still going. um, Sarah Howland in Inverness, and she's amazing. So it's like we're all on a journey, and I still need someone to hold a space for me to lay my things down, and and get a remedy, because sometimes my boundaries get wiggly. Um, and I need a remedy every so often when I find I'm putting too much energy out, whether it's in my personal life or it's in my working life, when I can kind of catch myself doing too much. Even this week, I dented my car twice this week because my energy wasn't very high, but yet I was trying to do a lot of things for other people. So I was running to do something for one person. I ended up hitting a pole outside their house, and I went to someone else's house a few days later, and I ended up scraping the side of my car. I was bringing something to their house, and I had to go, okay, right. Pull it in, pull it in. It's like, and there's a gorgeous remedy called carcinosum that I use quite a lot in my practice. And that's the one for me always. I need to take that remedy. And again, it's really good for boundaries, to just pull things in. It's that trying to fix everything, the habit we get,
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
that I'm not doing that. And when I find myself doing that, that's a great remedy to just pull everything back. So yeah, so I
Yeah.
definitely still need someone else to hold a space for me. It's really important, I think, when we're working with people, to have other people that we work with. Now, I don't just go to homeopath. I also go to craniosacral. I get occasional massage. I go for psychotherapy occasionally. It's like I always say to people, pull in your team if you can. So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
so important to have your energy clear, and be working with your stuff so that you're always able then to hold a space for other people. It's really
Yeah.
important.
Is that one of the key things, would you say, in holding a space? What was one of the biggest things you to learn, like in doing that, going from being someone who was really sensitive? I know you learned this in your training, but if you were to say to someone else who's in a situation where they need to hold space for someone else in a group, what is one of the most important things you'd say that you had to master really?
um, Grounding yourself, I suppose, and for me, and it's a lot of practitioner, it's like, not you're not there to fix somebody else. That's not your job. People will fix themselves, and that's so as I've reframed it in my head, like, so my job is not to fix anyone. My job is to find a remedy that will be the catalyst to help someone heal themselves. So that is just, and if I've often explained that to other people who are starting out, going, that's so that takes a lot of pressure off. It's the
Mm,
so I don't know what they're going to say when they come into a room. I don't know what's going to, in that moment, what they're going to feel they have spread. And oftentimes they don't know what they're going to say. It's really funny. I'll say, oh my God, I've never said that to anyone before. But it's something I've needed to hear so that I can find a good remedy that matches them. Um,
yes.
yeah.
I think that's really, and it's very, it feels like that's the time. Well, it is the time I think that's needed now, is that we're all stepping into our power, like empowering ourselves. That's sort of a passion of mine because it's sort of a path and journey I've been on, like the realization that we've outsourced our power in so many areas of our life. We've just been brought up and conditioned to do that. Like, ask the doctor, ask the banker, ask this person, everybody knows better than we. So, that sounds like that's a really important aspect of this work. Like, do you meet resistance, let's say? So people who are coming to you as a client and they're like, well, oh yeah, well, you're that's why I'm paying you. You're here to fix me. Do you ever sort of meet that type of, not in those words, but that idea? I want to
Yeah,
hand it over to you because that's what I've always been told to do.
yeah, and it won't like, yeah, sometimes, but I'll often find those clients don't hang around very long because if they're not ready to heal, because they're not consciously doing all the work, like they don't have to do anything, like their energy's changing, but it's their energy that's doing all the work. But I'm all about empowering people as much as possible. So I love giving the remedy and then someone going off and, as I said, they're processing it themselves, and then coming back with something else, so it's them doing the work, which I think is really important. I'm a big fan of getting people to learn how to take remedies themselves as well. So in clinic, I'll often give people, say, something, if their anxiety is quite pronounced, I'll give them, say, a remedy called arginate or aconite, something that matches their type that they can take as they need it. So they kind of feel they have something themselves, and that's really empowering for people.
Okay.
I also have courses in first aid homeopathy. So teaching people how to take remedies for colds and flus and headaches and um, you name it, broken legs,
Yeah.
black, like just anything that you can kind of work at home. So I love teaching those courses as well and giving people a toolkit to go off and then they can do a lot of it themselves.
Mm.
I love getting messages back from, I do that with another girl, Sharon O'Sullivan.
Yes, you teach classes, don't you? Yeah, you teach classes out in, is it Nod or in Spittle, or do you do them online as well?
Do the Norther in Furbo, yeah, in the
Verbal,
Northern.
sorry. Yeah.
Myself and Sharon O'Sullivan, we kind of joke with the anti-deck of homeopathy because we have this kind of great crack in our classes. Um, but it's yeah, so we do that kind of regularly. I think our next one's the 28th of September. And it's just teaching people how to use homeopathic remedy for more acute physical stuff, short-term
Mm,
stuff. And I love that
mm.
calls in from people or text messages from people going, "Oh my God, I tried that. I had, say, a stomach flu and I took this and it worked." And they're so delighted with themselves. And and we're delighted, it's yeah, it's that. And that often kind of gets, so I often say to people, kind of, if I can teach you how to work with your acute everyday stuff, it's like, come to me with the big stuff. So, for example, like, in the course, we teach someone how to deal with, say, children's earaches. But if a child is having constant earaches, then I'm like, then you bring them to me and we will find a
Mm.
remedy that's not just for the earache, but for the whole person, for the whole child, whatever it is, whatever they need. Um, and it could be as simple as they had too many antibiotics when they were a baby. So I can detox that out using remedies, or it could be, yeah, they got a fright as a baby, during their birth, or there could be anything like literally.
Isn't it amazing though when you describe the impact if people wonder, and sometimes we're so hard on ourselves and going, oh, why am I so this and why am I so anxious and why do I worry about this? And then even when you just think of everything that happens during our lives leaves some sort of an imprint energetically, doesn't it? And if you're not aware, like I studied craniosacral therapy for a number of years. I didn't finish it, but I learned enough through that to know, the issues are in the tissues. It just blew my mind to observe, things that could happen during a session and someone's reliving something from years ago or back in the womb. I went back there and I literally nearly relived it. So, I mean, all of these, it's like an unlayering really of an onion, it feels like, to
Yeah.
clean out to become the true you.
Yeah, I like that. I love craniosacral therapy, and
Yeah.
cranial actually work really well. And sometimes I'll actually work with the craniosacral therapist because they can tell me a little bit more about the energy, where energy might be stuck in somebody. That just gives me a little bit more information. So I'm constantly gathering information. So when someone comes to see me, I want to hear all their physical stuff. Um, you know, um, everything.
Mm.
Like a math
But not 3 hours. No.
3 hours. No, I can.
Speak quickly.
We're done. Focus now. And yeah, so everything about the person, how they experience the world, whether they're the type of person who's able to speak up for themselves or they're kind of more a people pleaser, whether they can express their anger, or their tears, or or is that more suppressed? Kind of how are they as a child? What illnesses did they experience? Any issues when their mother was pregnant? Any stresses? All that. So I'm just pulling together as much information as I can to
Mm.
match it around.
That's so exciting. Like straight away, and I'm always conscious, and I don't want to be, I'm trying to be more, let's say, authentic in what I believe about things or I feel about things without judging. Do you know what I mean? I think we talked about having your authentic voice, and I personally, but it's a personal thing, and I'm just curious for someone who's been so involved, like working in health shops and natural health, all through most of your life, your view of the whole allopathic system, let's say, do you see it with its place, or do how do you view it? Because I know there's always this I always have this sense of people saying, well, everything has its place, and I understand that, but where do you think we're moving? I suppose that's maybe more my question. Where, if you're visualizing moving forward in terms of health and empowerment and all of that, what would you like to see happen? What would you like, in terms of how we look after our health in, say, 10, 20 years?
I think it's already happening. Like I'm seeing a lot of doctors who are really have changed their mindset, and they are seeing people in a more holistic way. I have a few
Mm.
friends who are GPs, and they're fantastic. We're seeing more of an integration. Like it's more like a lot of GPs are now going, okay, this is the medication, but maybe they're quite open to people trying other things, like homeopathy. So it's like it's not going to, especially with homeopathy, it's not going to interfere with any medication. So people can be on anything. Like I've worked with people who are on chemotherapy to help them with their symptoms. Like that's what I love about homeopathy. It's not counterindicated in any
Yes.
any medical situation. So I've some clients who are on a lot of heavy medication. Um, so I think working both together, and as I mentioned earlier on, like sometimes people might need an anti-anxiety
Mm.
or antidepressant to buy them a bit of a breather. If I can't get things straight away down, we might need but I think we're working together a little bit more. I think there's been a real sea change, and I can see
Yeah.
where it's all working together. It's a more holistic way.
Yeah.
And I always say to people, like, if you can try the natural route first, it's great. But often I see people after they've tried all the medical stuff, and then they come to me, and it's like you're trying to unravel everything afterwards. You're trying to clear, all the stuff out of the system sometimes, and it can be a bit more of a challenge. But I think the future is exciting. I think we're seeing things where um, they're leaning more into the body's immune system and the body's wisdom. I think more in medicine. I like to think.
Yeah, I hope so. And it all goes back to what's been taught in medical schools as well. You have to start there. Can't blame anyone who's gone through a system but I think we're all hopefully questioning more. It's like what you said, that sort of empowerment. Like when you said about the detox, that's one thing that really never really I was aware of until I say I went through chemotherapy and then afterwards, and just even in general in life, food, everything that you're putting on your body and everything, the level of when we're talking about finding your voice and your clarity, and being in your body, I feel for a lot of my life I wasn't in my body, but also that my body was probably quite toxic. And it's only as I've started to use much more natural solutions in the last few years, I can definitely feel something is waking up in me. And I mean, I know there's a timing of what we're going through in terms of the planet, and there's a big shift in consciousness and frequency shift. All these things are happening. But definitely, is toxicity something you come up against a lot then? Is that, like what you said, if someone has been through a lot of.
Yeah, and before I started homeopathy, I was using a system called field control therapy where I was muscle testing the body and finding out what organs were under stress, and then testing what toxins were in there. And then I would detox them out using homeopathic remedies.
Wow.
I find I don't need to do that so much anymore, because oftentimes if you have a good, like I use a lot of, so for example, so if someone's had a lot of antibiotics, I might use antibiotic itself in a potency, as we call it, in a homeopathic remedy to clear the system out. Or I'll give them something what we call as a bowel nosode. So a bowel nosode is it's using potentized bowel bacteria. Sounds disgusting.
Sounds delicious.
Mutate. So when you take the energy of that, it's like the bowel starts to mutate into more beneficial bacteria, and that helps a lot to clear a lot of toxicity, because as you know, the bowels are a really big part of what we're absorbing, and so if the bowels are working better, then everything works better, and including anxiety.
Yeah.
Lady recently who had a skin issue that went on for years, and she tried everything else, and I put her on a bowel nosode, and it was so amazing. Like everything just cleared up within a few weeks. It was just, now that often, that generally doesn't happen. Skin stuff usually takes a long time, but again, this is one of these cases where it was like amazing just to watch it. So obviously that was her issue. I use a lot of remedies to support the liver. There's a few different liver remedies. Nux vomica would be a big one. Nux vomica is called it's poison nut, I
Heard
think.
of it. Okay.
Yeah. So it's one, again, as I said, if you took it, it would make you quite sick and it would damage your liver. But if you take it in homeopathic form, it's very supportive for the liver. Um, yeah, so one of the things we joke about when we're doing our courses is that it's a great one for hangover.
You don't want to be going around taking that all the time now.
It's
No.
probably not ideal, but it's whether it's a hangover from alcohol or a hangover from food, if if
Yeah, yeah. Or people or situations.
yeah, because we do hold a lot of our emotions in our liver. So oftentimes I
Yeah.
find I'm giving someone what we call a constitution remedy, so a remedy for their whole selves, themselves, and then I might give them something for, say, their bowel flora and the bowel nodose, and then I might give them something to support the liver. So I generally work like that now. I don't
Okay.
so much of the other therapy, but if someone's very toxic and say they've a lot of mercury fillings, and they've had I'll do that. If I feel we're not getting as far as we should be getting, then I'll go and I'll do an actual full detox of somebody where I'll be giving the like it would be wherever it's stuck with them. It could be liver, kidneys, it could be lungs, it could be brain if they're getting, there's all kinds of very.
Yeah. What's been the biggest shift you've had in your own life as a result of using homeopathy?
I think just for me it was, I'd say, just feeling, putting my energy in and being able to just feel safe in the world and just be able to move through it. Yeah, for me, definitely. And coming into my body that time. That's one of the things I remember, is coming into my body that time was just really stood with me. Um, and hormonally as well. I'm perimenopausal, and my God, that's like, I kind of made a deal with the universe where I said, okay, this is how we're going to do this. I'm going to take each symptom for a little while and then we're going to get rid of it, okay? I'm not taking all this on. I've just found, for me, the remedies have been just a game changer for that, because my anxiety came back really strongly. This is how I knew I was hitting perimenopause. I was literally waking in the morning with this, like an absolute panic in my solar plexus, and it was awful. And I'd fall asleep and the same thing kept happening repeatedly. Now I know it's a cortisol issue. I know now the reason why. Um, but my God, I was glad when remedies helped me with that, because I couldn't function. I was exhausted, like emotionally and physically. So I
Yeah,
was just,
that's really wow. That's a major one, I'd say, for most women. I think I was sharing with you beforehand. I don't think I had perimenopause. I think it just went straight in through chemotherapy, and I was just. But still, I would have that sometimes. The sleep disturbance obviously is a part of it as well. Is that's connected with the cortisol, is it?
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's loads of homeopathic remedies for sleep.
Mm.
We don't even, with the remedies, I don't need to know why particularly they can't sleep, but I need to know how they can't sleep. As in, like, are they waking every hour? Or is it that they can't get to
Yes.
sleep? Or are they waking and then they can't get to sleep? Or, what's the pattern? What's happening in their head? If I can figure out what it looks like, then I can hopefully find a right fit for them, for the sleep. But I know sleep is just, yeah, a big one.
It is key, isn't it? When you look at all the building blocks, if you're not, I know that myself, when you get good sleep, you can face anything pretty much that shows up in your day. If you don't, the tiniest thing can set you like under the bed covers. Well, I know for me, I mean, I'm amazed at people who can get by on less sleep. Like I see people who seem to be thriving on 4 hours or five, and I'm like,
Maybe
no,
short
I don't know.
term.
What?
Maybe short term. I don't know. Yeah, I
I
see a
don't
lot
know.
of.
I know someone who seems to be all their life like that, and I just looking at them and they look the picture of health. I'm wondering, what are they made of? Is there something else going on there? I know I'm a bit jealous, but
Speaking of that, I do see a lot of babies with sleep issues, and that's a great one to help, as a mother,
Oh, yeah.
satisfying to help a mom, with a child.
Yeah, of course. So you have a lot, what's the break? Would you have a lot of men coming now as well to you, or how has that shifted?
It's funny. I for a while there, I did have a lot of men coming, and then it's really funny. I went and did a men's health course, a homeopathic men's health course, and it was really really interesting. And then they all just fell away. It was like maybe I was too enthusiastic. Like, right now, I'm ready. Come on, guys, come on. And then they just kind of. It was really funny. So no, not at the moment, but I was there for a while. Men generally don't stay very long. It's quite funny. They're kind of like, okay, right, I'm done now. Goodbye. But there is some men who will stay the course and kind of, want to
Yeah.
heal. And I often find those men go into healing themselves or are in healing themselves already. So that's, yeah.
Yeah. It feels like like you said, the tide is turning in many things, and maybe women have started to get into this maybe a little bit sooner than men, and you can just the feel. I feel I've said it a few times, and I'll have to do it if I keep saying it, but I am doing it. But it just is coming this sort of feeling of interviewing men as well, and I always get an image of men. It just didn't feel it was the time. It was a space for women, and but I keep getting that, and I feel it's part of. I've interviewed a lot of different people who work with sort of energetic grids and what's going on in the earth and how the energy is shifting. And a lot of it they would say is, the divine feminine, the feminine energy, sort of the true feminine energy has really come in men and women, but it's sort of being embedded. And now the more true masculine, so, not that sort of the very strong boundaried safe space type of energy which I've experienced it in our drumming circle. I got a very strong sense of that from the men there. It's a very beautiful energy I haven't experienced a lot in life. I thought, wow, what is this? And so yeah, I think maybe that's what's happening. They're sort of coming, it's just all shifting and moving at the moment. Because I think ultimately, isn't it? Well, it feels like that. I'm gone off slightly on a different point, but that it's that union within ourselves. It's like you talking about your voice. I feel that it's the union coming into me, coming into my masculine and my feminineness in a very nice union, not in a one over the other. Do you know what I mean? Like, have you?
And I do think like men have got a really had a bum deal of it. It's like there's a lot of
Yeah. I'm
um,
not going to, yeah, I didn't even want to use the word that's used so commonly because I get tired of hearing it. I think the more we give energy to this, I just see beautiful men. I'm really, I don't see a lot of men, but in certain situations I'm blown away by this sort of, this, I just call it this true masculine energy, which is very strong, very protective, very safe. It's like a container, but very courageous. I'm going to keep saying it because, you give energy to it. I think that's what's needed, and it is what's happening. But it can't be easy being a man. But I mean, we've all been a victim to all of it, like all of this distortion of everything. Um,
Yeah, I think it's really, and that's why one of the reasons I did the course is because I want to hold more of a space for men because I think it's like the whole, yes, that word I don't use either. It's like we do, the world as being the way it
Distorted, I think, is a good word rather than I've heard used.
doing that, yeah, as you said, the balance of male female, and I think that is really important, and that's something I've had to do myself as well in my life. It's like I feel the male part is the bit the practical for me. It's always been the practical bit, growing my
Yes, more logical and yes, get things done. The action.
yeah, and then the feminine is more what I'm doing in the space in the room. Yeah, and I think men are changing. They are. I think they're. There's been a softening, and as society is kind of less kind of. I know in the big, world view, it looks like it's getting worse. This whole hyper masculinity. But I think men are changing, and it's to hold a space for men as well to, for us all to find our place and find our flow with each other. As you said there, the two energies together, and yeah.
Yeah. But like you said at the big with the homeopathy, like things often have to get worse before they get better. And I found that in my own life, if you have a symptom of something, things don't, it's like if you I don't know, say it's a friendship or some sort of relationship and it ends. And I've had that with lots of situations in my life, and it's pretty awful, but things have to sort of get worse. It's like you have to see what's been going on, or I suppose you have to get to the stage where you see what's not so good before things can get better. 'Cause
It feels like I feel almost like the way the world is at the moment. It's like we're in labor. It's like birthing pains for all the
exactly, yes, exactly. We're in the birth canal, and it's a
yeah.
lot of labor.
And I was laughing because this time last year I was working, as I said, with a lot of people, and I'm actually seeing a lot of people who are coming in with abilities that they didn't know they had. You know, they're able
Oh,
to,
wow, that's very exciting.
like, they can kind of sense energies and they can read auras and stuff like this, and they never told anyone, and the earth's starting to come up for them. It's really exciting.
Oh my God, that's so exciting.
Things are shifting. I think there's more kind of light work coming in. I keep saying to people, oh, this
Yes.
is, we need more of this intuition, you know, in the world, in this, you know, so I think it's an exciting time. We're having all these,
Oh, I'm getting such chills when you say that. That is so exciting. And I
yeah,
felt that myself as well. I'm very interested in how it's all connected. And it's very interesting with clients when you start to detox, when you start to bring in and you're more aligned with nature and you bring in natural solutions and you align with your voice and you align with your truth and your energy. I think these are natural abilities that we all have. They just have been sort of, it's just been, there's been so many layers on top of us nearly that we can't um
yeah,
feel
we
them.
hear it or feel it, yeah. But also it can be really scary for people because if you've been a person who's um sensitive and can feel a lot of things, you know, it's like that can tip people into,
Yes,
as you were talking about, severe anxiety, like, and stuff like that. So,
yes.
to be able to manage that, you know. Um,
So you're supporting people then with remedies to help them with those abilities, or
yeah.
to deal with the sensitivity.
If they're finding that they're, you know, and sometimes with remedies, I'm giving them certain, we use crystal remedies as well. It's kind of, you can, as I said, you can make a remedy from literally anything. So we have remedies like rose quartz and diamond and emerald. And actually, emerald is a really interesting one. It's about letting go of deep grief, and also we're talking about male female, so helping. So if someone's having relation problems, I'll often try emerald. But emeralds, or any of the emerald remedies, are about coming out of the earth and into the light, out of the darkness and into the light. So it's like when people need to move forward in their life and they're not sure how, sometimes one of those remedies will help them um, move forward. So when somebody's going through something like that, when they find they're having, you know, abilities and they weren't, you know, I often give them a remedy just to help them to figure out what, you know, what they want to, you know, how they want to express this, or do they want to express this? Because maybe they don't, and that's okay too, you know.
Yeah.
So the gem remedies are amazing for helping people move to the next stage in their life. Yeah,
Oh, that's incredible. I just get a sense from what you're describing of what's coming for all of us. Like they talk
yeah,
about this crystalline human, but who knows when, that we're moving towards. But like, isn't it just magical? Like, I mean, as I said, there's senses I have or things I now see in my with my inner eye, let's say that I never did. I can't even describe it other than yeah, and I mean, you could dismiss that very an interesting thing just for listeners again, because I think many of the people who listen to this podcast have a lot of these, are sensitive, are intuitive, have a lot of abilities, maybe have been using them in holistic work, or maybe just are waking up to them. But I just listened to an interview. I don't know if you know Lee Harris. He's that well-known energy worker. Do you know him? He's an energy intuitive. He's English. And he did an interview and he shared it because he said it was a very interesting one to do with this woman on her Mirabai or something on her channel. She's about 2 million people, but it was just people who were not, let's say, would have been very almost skeptical of this type of work. So it was very interesting to hear a conversation about someone describing. I think for anyone who's waking up to these abilities, he's very grounded and he just spoke about in a very grounded way about what he had experienced in his own life and how challenging it was and things I think what we can do, like it sounds wonderful as well with the homeopathy that we can support ourselves.
moving more into our intuition and trust, you know, in
Yeah. What's been the greatest gift out of it all or learning when you've been in this world of, I suppose, natural healing, homeopathy? What has been the greatest yeah, if you say, wow, this is one thing that really the penny is dropped in, or it's really given you. Um,
I think for me it was, I know this is so this is spouted out a lot, but just that it's okay to be yourself. Because for years I was so afraid to be a homeopath because I didn't want people to think, oh, she's, you know, she's working, you know, with holistic medicine, and I really kind of struggled with that. I remember taking out my nose stud because I wanted to be taken seriously and wearing certain things and trying to, and I would never tell a conventional person that I was a homeopath, a GP. It would be, whereas now I'm like, yeah, this is what I do, and that's okay. And I try and do it in a quite genuine way. Like people are sometimes shocked at my consultations when I'm just kind of like, yeah, and I might curse or I'll say, yeah, I really lost it with my kids this morning. Like we're all on a journey. We're all flawed. We're all finding our way. And, if we can hold space for each other to do that, it's really powerful. And for me, it's just to give myself permission to be myself and walk on my path and that it's safe and it's okay, to do that. And I think the more people can do that, just to whatever their path is, it doesn't have to be anything big. It could just be, minding their garden, anything that brings them joy, just that it's okay just to find your joy and find what you love doing, and just walk that path. It's yeah, for me it's been, because it's been a long journey to be able to do that. So that's been, I think, the biggest joy. And watching my kids obviously prescribe remedies. It's so funny. If I stub my toe, they're like, "Mommy, I think you need to take some arnica." It's like love.
God. But that's incredible. When I hear people like that talk, you're like you talking and your children growing up with this, you go, what does the future look like when you see children growing up, knowing about homeopathy and all these things? I mean, it just feels like you're really that ancestral line. Then you said, and your grandmother, your great grandmother, and your grandmother didn't, like you're bringing it. It feels like a lot of these abilities are coming alive again through all of us. It's all in our DNA anyways. Like, I think I really feel that it must be just a beautiful thing, that you're honoring that. Um, yeah.
My daughter keeps saying she wants to be a doctor, which I absolutely love. I love the
Oh, the
great.
cutting skips. But she'll change the face of medicine if she's coming in with
I think it's changing already. I'm seeing a lot of amazing
that's
GPs. Yeah,
yeah, and I know, and there are amazing GPs, and I'm not, I mean, there's amazing people. I think things don't change, systems and everything changes with the people in there, doing amazing work, which must be very hard sometimes when you're in systems that maybe are resisting the change. The people who are in there, I know, are very courageous. There are many very courageous people we don't hear about who are doing that. So hats off to everybody's. And I think what you said there about finding your joy, I think if you find joy, you bring joy, don't you, to other people. And that's what we're all here to do for each other, You being in your joy brings me joy because I experience it. And this is how we all sort of uplift and do this together, isn't it? It feels like, yeah, yeah. So thank you, Niamh. Any final words, and then I will as well, obviously, and how people contact you.
yeah. As I said, we're doing a homeopathy course on the 28th of September. Myself and Sharon O'Sullivan, and yeah, I really encourage people to have homeopathy as a little toolkit. It's great. Yeah, and I think yeah, and if you're curious about homeopathy, absolutely contact me. And if you have any questions, yeah.
Okay, and you do online consultations as well as in person. So for people who are not in Galway, the classes are all in person, though you said, aren't they, right now? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But any consultations, you deal with people all over the world, I imagine, as well as in Ireland. Yeah. Thank you. And I'll put all your contact details here. So thank you. Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. There's no greater gift to see to me. It's such an inspiration, someone who is following their path and is brave enough to do it and find their voice and do what they love.
Thank you so much, Celine. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, so much. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. Until the next time, take care.